The truth isn't positive or negative. It's just the truth. Now, here's some more of it. This is the Sports Source.
All right, welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. I want to send along our best wishes to Steve Sloan. He stepped away from the business just for a brief time as he battles a health issue right now. But his longtime partner, Joe Special, still running the show down there. New models are in-house right now. Always great deals. That's why I've told you for many, many years here, and they've been there for 45 years. Our show isn't quite that old. But for 45 years, you could have been saying there's no better place to buy a boat because it's absolutely true. Madisonville Marine, madmarine.com to learn more. All right, let's welcome in the next member of our family. We got Josh Ward down there, also from WNML AM and FM. Josh, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sean.
This is our Hot Read segment. 2 quick questions. I will start with you and ask you this. Jeremy Pruitt said after the game that he felt there were some explosive plays that might have been they could have taken advantage of. So he made the choice to remove Harrison Bailey and go to JT Shrout. Now, there are some people who look at it and say, why in the world would you take Bailey? The whole idea is to get him reps, put him out there. Other people are saying, well, you should have played Shrout all along. Look how good he was. What was your take on the decision to pull Bailey and put in Shrout?
I don't think either of those arguments is necessarily wrong either. I would have stuck with Bailey because if we've heard so much about him needing more reps and you have Florida's coach calling it cleanup time, well, I would have allowed Bailey the opportunity to clean up some of the things that he had done through the first 3 quarters and see if he can improve on that, build on that moving forward. You can also look at how Shrout played, though, and said, well, what if you had played him a little bit earlier? Could you have maybe put another score on the board and been a little bit closer to have some kind of shot in the 4th quarter? So I think it comes back to what you guys kind of mentioned in the last segment. At different points in time, Harrison Bailey, JT Shrout, and Brian Maurer have all been 2nd string, 3rd string, and 4th string at quarterback. So the confusion that has been created with what Tennessee should do at quarterback, that's where we are right now at this conversation.
Here's how they pick their quarterbacks. Let's get a tight shot in here. I really think, can we get a tight shot of this? I guess we can. All right, anyway. We have a wheel of quarterbacks. The joke's over now, so we'll just move on. But wait till all that work for a ha-ha. Anyway, the idea was they just spin it and see it pops up with whoever, and that's our guy for this series. Shrout, and there are a couple on there that say try again because it doesn't spin right. So, anyway, I literally think these guys have been riding up and down the elevator over there in terms of, okay, you're 1st string, now you're 4th string. Wait a second, you look good, so you're moving up to 2nd string, you're dropping down to 3rd string. You're not going to travel. Oh, wait, you're going to travel, but you're not. I don't think they know what they're doing in terms of who the quarterback is, and that to me is pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it's hard to say how somebody doesn't look at these quarterbacks at this point and go, listen, even if he has a bad day in practice, this is our 2nd best guy, or this is the guy we got to go with. Like, how many practices do you need to not go one of them's better than the other one? I mean, it's amazing, and the amount of times that they've just switched like that. They're shuffling cards, man. They're just seeing what comes up next. Ace comes out, yay, we got it. I don't know what they're doing, and frankly, they don't either.
Jay, would you have pulled Bailey there and put in Shrout?
I was okay with it, and there were a couple of reasons I was okay with it. One, Bailey had gone 4 consecutive possessions in the second half that ended in a punt. And the other thing is, to me, when I look at Tennessee right now at that position, it's not so much about outcome, it's about audition. And I think they were auditioning Shrout. I think they wanted to see what he could do. Even though it was against the backups, even though it was late in the game, I think they're putting people out there trying to figure out what they've got right now and what they've got in the future. So I was okay with it. I don't think it's anything that shatters Bailey's confidence. But I thought Shrout looked pretty good for a guy that had a torn labrum, by the way, on his throwing shoulder.
All right, let me get one last topic here in this, our second Hot Read topic. Let's go ahead and go to the graphic. All right, Jerry Pruitt after the game said, like I just said to them, talking about his team or the coaches back in the back room, there's probably not much difference between the team in our locker room and the team in the other locker room. Obviously, there is based off record, but that team that beat us, they won the East today. So I asked our guys, how much difference is there between us and them? And let's figure out how we can get there as a staff and as a program. I don't think that's going to quell the Hugh Freeze talk. When you're the head coach and you're now 0-9 against Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and your comment is there's not much difference between the locker rooms. Well, then where is the difference? If it's not in the players, where's the difference?
Well, let's just ask anybody that's going to be looking at who they're going to draft next year. Do they see a difference? because I bet they do. If they're looking at the next 2 years of guys from Tennessee and Florida, I guarantee there's a lot more names in their list of maybe we draft this guy than there are in Tennessee's roster. So I take a look at that, and I say that's pretty clearly there. Overall, I think there's one team that has a mentality. You have the announcers quoting Jim Chaney last night talking about mentality that they didn't have on this team, fire breathers or whatever the quote was. I think that's a little bit different. I also think there's a coaching staff on one side of the ball, on the field, that knows which players are the best players and knows their what they are as a team, how they're going to try to win, and another that doesn't. I think there's a huge amount of difference. In other words, there's a lot.
I think there's a difference in both the rosters more than he says. I think there's a difference in the coaches.
I agree, but in kind of to piggyback off Will, he talked about the draft. How many players on Tennessee's team do you think would start for Florida? Not a whole lot. So, yeah, I think there's a considerable difference right now in the personnel that they have. And it's also the mindset. The other part he put in there was about staff. I don't think this Tennessee staff has done a really good job maximizing the talent that they have.
One thing that's the same is Jeremy Pruitt's had the same amount of time with Tennessee's program as Dan Mullen's had with Florida's program. But you see the difference in 3 years.
Well, and the idea, there are a lot of people here that scoffed at Dan Mullen, didn't think that Florida hit the home run. They thought, well, he can't recruit. Look what he did at Mississippi State. Pruitt's got this great staff. We're going to out-recruit him. Again, go back to NFL draft, who would start where. I don't think that the recruiting war has been won by Jeremy Pruitt in terms of going up against Dan Mullen. We'll get into Mullen versus Pruitt a little bit later in the show and show you some numbers of what both guys inherited. Basically, it's the exact same program as what they inherited. We'll show you that by the numbers a little later. When we come back, let's get a little more perspective on the quarterbacks. We'll bring our own quarterback out here. We'll get a little more in-depth into the areas of Bailey and Trout's game that look good, what needs work. And as I say, we've got a lot more coming on the Sports Source. So stick around. We'll see you on the other side of this break.